I wrote some things down because I want to be very clear in my message today. And the first part of my message is to speak to the public. This illness, ME/CFS, or myalgic encephalomyelitis, formerly known as chronic fatigue syndrome, is a devastating, chronic, unpredictable, frightening illness that impacts almost every aspect of the body, every system, and every aspect of living day to day. Millions have this illness, and this illness renders them missing from life. Not just because the illness is debilitating, but because we do not provide the awareness, the medical care, the support that is needed for people with this illness, and their only recourse is to hunker down and survive in their small circle of support. I would ask the public, all of us, that we all do our part to raise awareness for this illness. But most of all, the power in this country is the voice of the public who speak to their elected officials. The elected officials are the people who determine funding to our health organizations. And we need to be a voice, a constant voice, talking to them, encouraging them, educating them so that they can represent us and initiate change at that level. I want to speak to those of you, people with ME/CFS and families. I want you to know that the world needs to be more aware of your suffering and your struggle. A growing number of nonprofit organizations are here to support you and to be your voice. There are many, but it includes ME Action, Bateman Horne Center, the Open Medicine Foundation, Solve ME/CFS, and other organizations, each of which, many other smaller organizations, each of which finds the way to leverage their resources to help in a small way. We all need your support, and we need the support of those who have the means to drive this effort forward. What is wonderful is that these organizations, those that can, have been probably the primary source of funding for research and advocacy in the absence of support from our medical institutions and from the federal government. I also want you to know that I'm very, very optimistic that within the last 4 years, things have really changed in terms of those in the federal health institutions and scientific institutions. We now have support, genuine support, within the National Institutes of Health. And this illness is now seated in the National Institute of Neurologic Diseases and Stroke, which is a very serious institute. And the director of this institute is the chair of a committee called the Trans NIH Committee that has members of all the different institutions in the NIH so they can learn how to work together and pool their resources to improve the science moving forward. And you probably know that they have funded collaborative research centers. And there's an inpatient study where they are bringing in people and like for a week at a time in the hospital and doing every kind of diagnostic test they can think of to try to better understand this illness. So if you know people who would qualify for this study, we would love for them to volunteer. You have to be sick less than 5 years, and the illness has to be started with some kind of a documented infection, or at least in that surrounding time. Nevertheless, the federal support for this illness and these illness complexes is not anywhere near enough, and nothing that matches the scope of illness. So we really need to work on all fronts to bring the funding for science up to the level of other equally debilitating illnesses. You desperately need medical providers who understand these illnesses, both primary care doctors and specialists. That's one of the things that Bateman Horne Center is trying to focus on in the last year, is taking the science to those practicing in medicine so they can recognize this illness and be part of the team that moves the quality of healthcare forward. You need diagnostic tests and effective treatments, and that can't come fast enough. But there is progress. But that's where the funding needs to be, to go to improving all of the science that helps provide diagnostic studies and treatment opportunities. You also need financial safety nets and support. This is such a debilitating illness that affects families. We need to have all the support from our public institutions to help you stay mainstreamed, attend school, be able to do things so that you can stay as much a part of society as possible instead of being among the millions missing. I have a few harsh words for our medical institutions. That's probably the main reason I wrote it all down. Those of you who lead and are part of medical institutions, you have failed people with myalgic encephalomyelitis. You have marginalized people with this debilitating illness simply because you do not have the level of scientific proof that obligates you to action. You are paralyzed and blinded by adherence to practices in the guise of quality assurance that are really designed to save time and money. You should be the last institution to worship finances over medical and scientific progress and the delivery of compassionate health care to all. And this is our last bastion. We need our medical institutions on all levels to come up to speed with the science and to stop thinking about saving time and money and take care of people with this illness. I am sure that we have a lot of science that could move things forward. I am sure that everything we learn about ME/CFS is going to move science forward in terms of progress with other related illnesses. So this is very important, and I want you to know we're all very devoted to the cause. All right? We love you guys, and we're going to support you.